There exists a fundamental contradiction in how most of us are raised. From childhood, we absorb the message that decency will protect us, that integrity functions as armor, that the universe somehow keeps score and rewards those who follow the rules. We build our lives on this foundation, operating as though goodness itself creates an invisible shield. Then reality arrives, and the shield proves to be nothing more than wishful thinking. You have felt this before, even if you never named it. That moment when your honesty was weaponized against you. That time your generosity was mistaken for weakness. The countless instances where doing what felt right left you exposed, diminished, overlooked. These are not isolated incidents or bad luck. They are symptoms of a deeper misunderstanding about how human systems actually function. The world you were promised does not exist. The one where virtue alone determines outcome, where character speaks for itself, where good people naturally rise while the corrupt inevitably fall. That world lives only in stories we tell children. The actual world operates on different principles entirely, principles that remain invisible to those who refuse to see them. Consider the people who have achieved what you want, the ones with influence, resources, respect. Do you truly believe they arrived there through pure intention and nothing else? Strip away the mythology, and what remains is something more complex. They understood that possessing admirable qualities and projecting them effectively are entirely separate skills. They learned to read the room, to recognize predatory patterns, to distinguish between allies and opportunists wearing friendly masks. This is not an indictment of your character. Your impulse toward fairness and compassion does not need correction. What needs examination is the framework within which you have been deploying these qualities. You have been operating with incomplete information, assuming everyone shares your rulebook, believing that transparency and consistency will earn you the treatment you deserve. The issue is not that you care too much or try too hard. The issue is that you have been playing a game without understanding the actual mechanics. While you focused on being good, others focused on being effective. While you worried about staying true to your values, they worried about advancing their position. And in the collision between noble intention and strategic action, intention loses every single time. There is a reason certain people seem to glide through obstacles that stop you cold. They possess something beyond talent or luck. They possess an understanding of how perception shapes reality, how human nature operates beneath social niceties, how the same action can yield completely different results depending on how it is framed. They learned what you were never taught, that the world responds not to what you are, but to what you appear to be. This creates a peculiar trap for genuinely decent people. Your authenticity becomes predictability. Your honesty becomes vulnerability. Your consistency becomes a tool others use to manipulate your responses. You telegraph every move, broadcast every feeling, explain every decision. And in doing so, you hand away the only real power you possess, the ability to control your own narrative. Think about the last time someone took advantage of your good nature. They knew exactly how you would respond, did they not? They knew which buttons to push, which appeals would work, how far they could push before you would finally resist. Your virtue became the map they used to navigate around your boundaries. Not because you were weak, but because you were readable. The alternative is not to become callous or cruel. It is to pair your existing qualities with a layer of strategic awareness. To recognize that kindness without discernment is not virtue but liability. To understand that trust freely given to unvetted people is not openness but carelessness. To accept that maintaining your principles while also protecting yourself from those who exploit principles is not hypocrisy but intelligence. Most people mistake this for cynicism. They hear these ideas and recoil, insisting that adopting any defensive posture means surrendering their humanity. But this reaction itself reveals the problem. The belief that you must choose between being good and being safe, between having values and having boundaries, between caring about others and caring about yourself. These are false choices that keep you trapped in a losing position. What separates the effective from the exploited is not morality, but awareness. The person who recognizes manipulation before it succeeds is not more corrupt than the person who gets manipulated. The individual who projects strength while maintaining compassion is not less genuine than the one who projects vulnerability and gets destroyed. The difference lies in understanding that the world is full of actors playing roles, and refusing to play yours with intention means letting others write your script. You have probably noticed by now that explaining yourself rarely helps. That being an open book does not earn you readers, but editors who tear out pages they dislike. That making yourself completely available does not create appreciation, but breeds contempt. These patterns repeat because they reflect something fundamental about human psychology that your upbringing probably never addressed. The uncomfortable truth is that scarcity creates value, while abundance creates dismissal. When you are always there, always giving, always explaining, you train others to view you as a resource rather than a person. Your time becomes assumed rather than appreciated. Your effort becomes expected rather than valued. Your presence becomes background noise rather than an event. And reversing this requires more than wanting respect. It requires understanding what generates respect in the first place. Authority does not announce itself through volume or force. It emerges from control, specifically the control of three elements that most people surrender without realizing they possess them: information, presence, and emotional response. Master these three domains, and you master how others perceive and treat you. Ignore them, and you remain at the mercy of whoever understands them better. Start with information, the currency you have been spending recklessly your entire life. Every time you over-explain a decision, you weaken your position. Every time you share more than necessary, you create vulnerabilities. Every time you answer questions nobody actually asked, you train others to believe you require their approval. The compulsion to be transparent feels virtuous, but in practice, it functions as a leak in your armor. There exists a profound difference between honesty and foolishness. Honesty means not lying. Foolishness means volunteering information that serves no purpose except to make you feel morally pure. When you reveal everything, you eliminate mystery. When you eliminate mystery, you eliminate interest. When you eliminate interest, you eliminate respect. The math is simple, even if the execution feels uncomfortable. Watch how powerful people handle questions they would rather not answer. They do not lie outright, but they also do not stumble over themselves, providing ammunition that could be used against them later. They redirect. They deflect. They answer a different question than the one asked. They understand that the person asking does not always deserve the answer, and that providing it anyway is a choice, not an obligation. This principle extends beyond specific conversations into the broader management of what others know about you. Your struggles, your doubts, your plans, your weaknesses. Each piece of information you release is a piece of power you transfer, not because knowledge itself is threatening, but because in the wrong hands, accurate knowledge becomes a targeting system. People use what they know to predict your moves, to exploit your patterns, to push you where they want you to go. The instinct to share everything comes from a desire to be understood. You believe if people truly knew you, they would value you correctly. But this assumption is backwards. People do not value what they fully understand. They value what intrigues them, what remains slightly out of reach, what keeps them guessing. The moment you become completely knowable, you become completely ordinary. Strategic silence accomplishes what constant explanation never can. When you stop justifying every action, people stop questioning your authority to take those actions. When you stop defending every decision, people stop assuming you need defending. When you hold your reasons close instead of broadcasting them, others begin to assume your reasons must be solid. Silence creates the space where respect grows. This connects directly to the management of your presence, the second pillar of personal authority. You have been taught that availability equals kindness, that showing up repeatedly proves loyalty, that being there whenever needed demonstrates your value. But relationships of all kinds operate on supply and demand. Flood the market with yourself, and your worth plummets. Think about anything you have ever truly valued. Was it abundant or scarce? Was it always available, or did you have to wait for it? The things we treasure are the things we cannot have whenever we want them. This applies to objects, opportunities, experiences, and people. Your constant presence does not make you valuable. It makes you furniture. The person who always responds immediately to messages trains others to expect instant responses. The person who always says yes to requests trains others to assume agreement. The person who always makes time trains others to believe their time has no competing demands. You think you are being helpful. They think you have nothing better to do. Withdrawing is not cruelty. It is calibration. When you step back intentionally, when you create gaps in your availability, when you let people wonder where you are and what you are doing, you force a recalibration of your value. The absence creates a void, and voids draw attention in ways constant presence never does. People notice when you leave far more than they notice when you arrive. This requires overcoming the fear that stepping back means being forgotten. But consider, if you are only remembered because you never leave, were you ever actually memorable? The truly valuable are not the ones hovering constantly in the foreground. They are the ones whose absence is felt, whose input is sought, whose return is anticipated. That position cannot be achieved through persistence. It can only be achieved through strategic withdrawal. The third element, emotional control, separates those who command from those who are commanded. Every time you react visibly to provocation, you hand the provocateur your strings. Every time anger or fear or insecurity flashes across your face, you signal exactly how to manipulate you next time. Your emotions become the instruction manual for your defeat. This does not mean suppressing what you feel. It means refusing to let what you feel become instantly visible and therefore weaponizable. The person who remains calm while others spiral holds every advantage. They can think clearly while others react blindly. They can choose their response while others are controlled by impulse. They remain in the driver's seat while others become passengers in their own situations. Watch any negotiation or conflict between a composed person and an emotional one. The outcome is decided before any words are exchanged. The emotional person has already lost because they cannot hide what they want or fear. The composed person can probe, adjust, and capitalize on every crack in their opponent's armor. Emotional transparency is not authenticity. It is strategic suicide. Mastering your reactions means others can no longer predict you. They try the usual triggers, and nothing happens. They push buttons that used to work and discover those buttons no longer exist. They attempt to throw you off balance and find you unmovable. This unpredictability is what makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Not dangerous as a threat, but dangerous as someone who cannot be easily handled or dismissed. People respect what they cannot fully control. They respect what keeps them slightly uncertain. They respect what refuses to fit into their comfortable categories. When you manage information, control presence, and master emotional response, you become all three. You become someone who operates by different rules, and that difference is what transforms how the world treats you. The final principle that separates those who merely survive from those who shape outcomes is timing. Most people confuse motion with progress, believing that constant action demonstrates commitment or capability. But real power belongs to those who understand that doing nothing at the wrong moment is superior to doing everything at the right one. The hunter does not fire at every movement. The hunter waits until the single moment when success becomes inevitable. Urgency is the enemy of precision. When you rush, when you react immediately to every stimulus, when you move simply because stillness feels uncomfortable, You sacrifice accuracy for speed. And in any situation where outcomes actually matter, accuracy determines everything. The hasty response feels productive, but rarely is. The patient observation feels passive, but positions you perfectly for the decisive move. This requires a fundamental shift in how you measure effectiveness. Stop counting actions and start counting results. Stop glorifying busyness and start valuing impact. The person who makes 20 moves and accomplishes nothing is not working harder than the person who makes one move and changes the entire situation. They are simply less strategic, less focused, less willing to wait for the moment that actually matters. Watch how amateurs approach problems compared to experts. The amateur attacks immediately, throwing effort at the obstacle, hoping volume will overcome resistance. The expert studies first, identifies the weak point, then strikes with precision at exactly the right angle and moment. Same problem, drastically different approaches, predictably different outcomes. The difference is not talent or resources. It is patience combined with awareness. You have been operating in survival mode without realizing it. Survival mode means constant reaction, perpetual defense, endless explanation and justification. It means waking each day to respond to whatever comes rather than directing what comes. It means allowing external forces to set your agenda, your mood, your priorities. This is not living. This is being lived through. Strategic positioning is the opposite. It means creating the conditions where opportunities come to you rather than chasing them desperately. It means building a reputation that does the work of 1,000 conversations. It means developing patterns that make you unmistakable rather than interchangeable. When you operate from genuine strategy rather than panic disguised as productivity, everything changes. The transformation begins when you stop fitting yourself into existing categories and start becoming your own classification. Systems are designed to process predictable inputs. When you are predictable, you get processed. When you become anomalous, you break the processing mechanism and force a different kind of attention. Not the attention that comes from loudness or spectacle, but the attention that comes from being genuinely difficult to categorize or dismiss. This is where everything previously discussed integrates into a coherent approach. You control information, so you become mysterious rather than transparent. You manage presence, so you become scarce rather than abundant. You master emotion, so you become steady rather than reactive. You practice patience, so you become precise rather than frantic. Each element reinforces the others until they form something greater than their sum. The shift is irreversible once it begins. You cannot unsee what you now understand about how perception functions, how human nature operates beneath social performance, how the game actually works. The moment you start applying these principles, you cross a threshold. People respond differently because you are projecting differently. The dynamics that used to trap you no longer function because you are no longer participating in them the same way. Someone who dismissed you starts paying attention. Someone who took you for granted starts wondering what changed. Someone who used to manipulate you easily discovers their tactics no longer work. They will not understand what happened. They will simply sense that something is different, that you have become harder to read, harder to predict, harder to handle. And that uncertainty creates something you have been missing: respect. This is not about becoming someone you are not. It is about becoming who you are with intention and protection. Your values remain intact. Your capacity for kindness remains available. But now they operate behind a framework of strategic awareness that prevents them from being exploited. You are not less genuine. You are less vulnerable. There is a profound difference. The ones who truly master this balance do not announce their transformation. They do not explain their new approach or justify their changed behavior. They simply move differently, speak differently, respond differently. And the world adjusts accordingly, because the world always adjusts to however you train it to treat you. You have been training it to dismiss you. Now you will train it to respect you. But none of this matters if it remains theoretical. Understanding without application is just sophisticated procrastination. You can know everything written here and still get walked over tomorrow if you do not actually implement any of it. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people spend their entire lives, comfortable with the idea of change, but terrified of the actual execution. The choice is simple, even if the execution is difficult. Continue as you have been, hoping the world will eventually recognize your worth without you having to project it strategically. Keep being the open book, the always available resource, the predictable responder, the emotional transparency, the person who gives everything and wonders why they receive so little. That path is familiar and safe and guaranteed to produce more of what you already have. Or begin implementing what you now understand. Start controlling what you share. Start managing when you appear and when you withdraw. Start mastering your visible reactions. Start waiting for the right moments rather than filling every moment with action. Watch how others respond as you become less readable, less available, less predictable. Notice the shift in how you are treated when you stop teaching people that you have no boundaries worth respecting. The world will not become fair or kind or just, but you can become someone who navigates its actual rules rather than its imagined ones. You can transform from someone the system uses into someone who uses the system, not through corruption or cruelty, but through awareness and strategy. The tools exist. The choice is whether you will use them or continue pretending they do not matter. Everything changes the moment you decide.